Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FitChat. My name is Jenny, and today with me, I have a very special guest. I have Kimber Otis from our Colorado Springs Fitness Center. She is the program manager there. So, thank you so much for joining me today, Kimber.
You're so
We're
welcome. I'm excited to be here.
we're happy to have you. So, if you just want to start off by giving our listeners the inside scoop about you, a little bit of your background, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So my background is in kinesiology. That's what my degree is in. So exercise science is a better word for that. And I had actually originally been going to school for nursing and then switched
Ah,
to kinesiology just because I fell in love with studying. I was all about the human body always, but learning how to move better and more efficiently, and just the holistic view of exercise was really interesting to me. So I studied kinesiology, and then while I was in school, I started working at a Pilates studio, and it was a really unique one because it was a really small studio. So it was either one-on-one classes or two-on-one, and we had a lot of people that just were coming in either like post-cancer treatment or post-PT from surgery or whatever it was. They had a lot of chronic pain or just movement compensations and issues that they were trying to work through. So I got just fell in love with teaching people how to move better in that way, in that like one-on-one environment. So yeah, I've just always loved sports and movement. It's always been a part of my life, and I fell in love with learning how to do it better.
I love that. It's a very interesting background starting from nursing and then realizing, nope, I just want to focus on the way the body moves and jumping into kinesiology. I love that. Do you have any hobbies outside of work? I know you probably love to work out, don't we all? But anything else you like to do?
Yes, I definitely love to work out. It's part of my daily routine, but I love to snowboard. I think that's probably my main like hobby, at least in the winter. And then just being outside. I recently moved to Colorado, and although California is very outdoorsy as well, I feel like moving to a new place made me want to explore more. So I've fallen in love with like hiking and just like exploring new areas and kind of getting lost on the trails and all of that. We have great sunny weather here most of the year. So just being outside is one of my main hobbies.
That's good. Is the snow a big adjustment?
It's a great question. We actually have snow today and it's mid-April. So
No way.
yes, I'd say that like I love the snow, and here is very mild in the sense of like we will get 6, 8, 12 inches, but it'll be gone within 24 hours because of how sunny it is.
Mm.
So I feel like I kind of get the best of both worlds. Like I get some snow, and I feel like I feel like that's so magical. But I think around April is when I'm like, okay, we're good. We could move on to spring. We could move on to warmer weather now, and I'd be
Yeah,
happy. So I'm
definitely.
getting a
I'm
little
ready.
old.
Yeah, I'm ready for summer in Houston, even
Yeah,
though humidity's coming, but I'm fine with it. I'll take
totally.
that over snow any day.
Yeah,
But you
for
went
sure.
from California, Colorado, 2 very big hiking states. So
Yes.
I bet you love just exploring those trails and everything. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Cool. So what's an area that you're super passionate about in our field, kinesiology? What specific points and things do you enjoy the most?
Yeah. I really love teaching people how movement can be so healing to their bodies. I think for so long, for decades and decades, exercise has been talked about as just like a way to look a certain way, or like it's something that you have to do because of your health, which it is. Movement is essential to the body. The body is made to move,
Mhm.
but it can also be really healing. So I love to work with people with chronic pain and stiffness, which is most of humans in
Right.
this world, because of our jobs or just the nature of life in general. So yeah, I just love to work with people to help them decrease that chronic pain and stiffness. And I actually dealt with unexplained chronic pain for about 10 years that traditional exercise really aggravated and made worse. And
Mm,
so I spent years like figuring out ways to move my body that actually helped me. And just the proper ways to move my body,
right.
that just like was life changing for me. So it's so fun for me to help other people understand that and just
Mhm.
watch their lives change with realizing that like exercise doesn't mean misery. Like
Yeah,
exercise needs to be something that you enjoy, and like your
right.
body starts to crave it because it's made to do it. So I just love
Yeah.
like teaching people and watching that
Yeah, that's such a
moment.
great point. I love switching the narrative in people's heads of, okay, exercise is to lose weight and exercise should be hard and exercise is blah. Like I love changing that narrative in people's heads. And like you said, just working through chronic pain and making your body feel better and move at, you know, it's through, its
Yeah,
best. I don't even know the word, but just letting your body move,
totally.
easily without any pain. I mean, that's huge, and I feel like, with specifically the members that we see here at HPE and all the employees, we're seeing a lot of chronic pain and stiffness just from them sitting at their desk all day. I mean, you're working 8+ hours each day, and that can be a lot on your body. So with Kimber here with me today, I definitely want to dive into our posture. Um, I feel like sitting at your desk, a lot of things can go wrong, and a lot of people don't realize that your posture makes a huge difference in the way that your body feels and the way that it moves. So, I kind of want to chat through with you today just some common issues that we see um, in specific areas when we're sitting at our desks. So walk me through some common issues that we see.
Yeah, great question. As you said that, I'm like, okay, gotta sit up straighter.
I
Making
know.
sure
I'm so bad about that. I'm like
you
this.
know, it's like we are culprits of this. We are not
Yes,
perfect by any means.
not at all.
Um, the common areas we see are, unfortunately, the main areas of the body. So we see it in the scapula, the spine, and the pelvis are the areas that we see the most effects of when it comes to sitting for long periods of time. And not even just sitting, but sitting with technology. So sitting on our computers and sitting on our phones. It puts a lot of stress because we're rounding, and that the nature of the needs of like typing on a keyboard and using a mouse cause us and force us to round forward. So that brings us to the scapula first, that your shoulder blades. So when we're typing, we're rounded forward. Our shoulders have to move forward. And then our eyes usually are going to look down, or they're going to look at our screens. And because of that, you're pulling your chest muscles, your pec muscles are pulling those shoulders in. So they're constantly tight as you sit at a desk. So then for 8 hours a day, they're in the same position, they're shortened. And uh, on the opposite end, the back of your scapula is pulled apart. So those rhomboids are like almost like the six pack of your back. So like they're on the inside of your shoulder blades, and they're stretch. They're in a fully lengthened position all day, which means they're really weak. And then it moves down the spine. So when we're sitting, we're really compressing our lower back. Most of us, even if we have lumbar support in our chairs, which a lot of us do nowadays, we usually, majority of the time, are not using it.
Using it,
So
yeah.
we're leaning forward. And so our low back, our lumbar spine, those vertebrae are really compressed for 8+ hours a day. Most of us are either working longer than 8 hours, or we're moving from our desk to our couch to watch TV for more hours. So
Yeah.
our spine is very compressed. Those muscles again are shortened for long periods of time. And then your spine is not in its optimal alignment, not in the alignment it's meant to be in. And then finally our pelvis. So when we're seated, we tend to fall into a posterior pelvic tilt, and that's one of the really common pelvic tilts. So we have anterior, which means your pelvis is tipped forward. Like imagine if it was a bowl of water, it's tipping the water forward. And then posterior, which is when we're sitting, it's tipping the water back, which means that our hip flexors, so all the muscles in the front part of our hips are really, really shortened all day long. And then our glutes are really lengthened all day long. So they're really weak. They're not active, and they almost tend to fall asleep almost like when we get up, it's actually really hard to activate them because they are in a lengthened position for so long. So I'd say those are the three places in our bodies, which are crucial places,
Yeah.
that are affected by sitting for hours on end.
Basically the entire body. And you made a good point about, we're sitting at our desk looking at our computer, hunched over like this. Then, once we're done with work, we go sit in the car and we drive
Mhm.
home. And so then we're at the steering wheel and we're hunched over like this. And then we go home and the first thing we want to do is lay on the couch and watch TV. And then, so it's just this chronic cycle of,
Yeah.
sitting in that poor postural position.
Mhm.
Um, so having poor posture at your desk obviously can lead to a lot of issues and imbalances, um, and compensation. So walk me through what poor posture sitting at your desk, 8 plus hours, what that could possibly lead to, and what you see in clients and all of that.
Yeah. So having poor posture at your desk, like I was saying, leads to a lot of muscular imbalances. So it leads to one muscle being extremely tight or shortened, and the opposing muscle, not necessarily always from front and back, but in this case, usually, being really lengthened or weak and turned
Mhm.
off, so not strengthened. So then when that happens, it leads to incorrect patterns of movement. So when we get up from our desk, we expect our bodies to just automatically go into perfect alignment, and then we do the rest of our day, whether that's picking up our kids or picking things up off the floor and putting them up high. But really our bodies aren't trained yet to do that. Like, we're
Mhm.
taking them from a really poor alignment, and we're forcing them to do work that it's not ready for, so then that
Okay.
leads to injury. So that we refer to as the cumulative injury cycle. So it starts with that muscular imbalance, moves to movement compensations or incorrect movement patterns, and then to injury eventually. So for a good example of this, when it comes to sitting at our desk, and something that I see a lot in people, are the psoas muscles being affected. So psoas muscles actually connect to your lumbar spine, so the vertebrae in your low back, and then it goes through and connects to really deep in your pelvis.
Mhm.
So that is actually the one muscle that connects your upper skeleton and lower skeleton. So it's a very important muscle. It's also really big and really, really deep. So as you can imagine, when we sit all day, that muscle is really shortened. And then we get up and we try to move, and we just expect it to like lengthen right out and work properly and work amazingly
Right.
for us. But really, what happens is when it's sitting in that posture, in that posterior tilt, it's shortening. So it's pulling on your lumbar spine, and it's putting a lot of pressure and stress on your lumbar spine. And then, like we mentioned, the glutes are really weak. So when we get up to go, our glutes are not awake, they're not ready to fire, and so our psoas takes a lot of the pressure and a
Mm.
lot of the work that it's not meant to take. Like, that's not the role of the psoas. The psoas is an important muscle, but it's supposed to work together with the muscles around it, and we
Right.
don't necessarily spend time training it to do that, or training the other muscles to work with it. So this is when injuries happen. Like, the pelvis is then, when we stand up, forced into a pretty severe anterior tilt. So it's tilted forward like it's pouring the water out, because it's pulling on that low back. And then we want to go and we work out with it. So when we try to engage the core in that position, the core is actually really, really lengthened in an anterior tilt. So it's really hard to pull the belly button into the spine, as we often say,
Right.
in class, because you're starting from a really lengthened position instead of a neutral position. So that is probably the one of the most common I see, and then that leads to injuries. So that can lead to a lot of inflammation just in general. A
Right.
lot of people feel that in the low back, but then they'll also feel it in the hips. So if you ever get a massage, or if you ever foam roll, you'll find the spot on your back where if you press on it, it's like excruciating pain. It's
Whoa.
like
Yeah.
sending, yeah, like most people will start to sweat, they cry, it's
Yeah.
they hold their breath, like it's really painful. Or in your glutes, like you can push that spot where it connects and you feel a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So now imagine like taking that pain, obviously it's a severe amount, and then you're trying to just go out and pick up your kids and do all your normal daily activities with that amount of inflammation and pain in your body. So
Mhm.
then you're just moving in incorrect patterns, and that is going to lead to those areas, which your hips are very important to movement in general, those
Right.
areas being injured.
It almost sounds like an overuse injury. Like, and I feel like people can look at overuse injuries and think of runners and
Mhm.
cyclists and things like that. But really, just sitting at your desk can
Absolutely.
cause, certain muscles and tendons to get super tight and get overused because you're
Mhm.
not using the correct muscles to sit at your desk, so it leads
Right.
to injury and all those things. So that's a super good point. So moving forward, how do we correct these things? How do we avoid those injuries? I mean, that's the $1,000,000 question.
Totally. No. And I wish it was just like an easy answer.
Mhm.
But I think in a sense it is. It's learning how to train your entire body as a whole rather than focusing on the big muscles. I think exercise or just like the fitness industry in general for decades preached like we're working our traps, we're working our biceps and our triceps, and we're working our glutes and quads. Like
Right.
it was very much big muscle driven, but there's a lot of little muscles that are crucial to efficient human body movement. And I think the best thing I've learned over the last few years, and the idea that has stuck with me the most, is like we want to train our bodies for everyday movement so they're ready to do those movements. Like we're not training, most of us aren't training for a strongman competition or a CrossFit competition. There are some people that do that and the training's going to look different, but when we're training, like when we're doing squats, when we're doing overhead presses, when we're doing deadlifts, we're training for everyday movements. Like we're training to lift a box over our head. We're training to bend over and pick something up so that our bodies have seen that movement before. And when we go to do it in our everyday life, the right muscles are recruited to do that. So then we're going to be less likely to injure that part of our body. But that comes with universally strengthening the muscles. So not just focusing on the muscles in the front of the body or the muscles in the back of the body, but almost working to strengthen and lengthen the proper muscles. So when we're sitting at our desks, our pecs are really short. So we want to work on lengthening that in our workouts. We want to do the
Mhm.
opposite of that as much as we can in the rest of our lives. And then the opposite is true for the back. So like strengthening those rhomboids, working on pulling those shoulder blades together and strengthening those while you're lengthening these so that you're counteracting what you're doing all day long at your desk. So yeah, you're preventing those muscle imbalances by doing the opposite. So you're learning like, oh, I feel really tight here, so I need to lengthen that muscle, but then I'm probably going to need to strengthen the back muscles because they're not as awake, they're not as turned
Right.
on, so I need to make sure they're ready for the movement.
So let's walk through when you're seated in a chair, like we
Mhm.
both are right now.
Mm.
What muscles are we supposed to be engaging and how are we supposed to properly sit? So
Mm.
I guess we could start at the bottom. So
Yeah.
your foot your foot should be flat on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Where should your glutes be in your chair? All the
So
way
it should be,
back?
yeah. So it should be all the way back. And I was actually just I learned something new the other day because our ergonomics specialist told me like you're supposed to actually sit back in your chair, like especially if you have a lumbar support in your chair, like it's meant to
Feels so
relax.
weird.
It totally does. And it's like, oh, I feel lazy. Like it makes me feel like I'm
Right.
lounging, but really like your chair is meant to support you. So you want your feet flat on the floor, your knees above your ankles. You want your knees about at a 90-degree angle if you can. So adjusting your chair to make that. And then your hips are slightly above your knees. So it takes some of that pressure off. But a seated posture or neutral position of your pelvis and your spine, which is what we're going for, so somewhere in between those two extreme tilts, is an active position. So we're not just
Yeah.
sitting here passively. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like you're sitting in your chair can be a core workout. You can get a core
Yeah.
workout all day long and it'll actually help you in the rest of your life. Like your core can get so strong by just sitting actively in your chair.
Right.
So having your sits bones firmly on the chair, like you should feel your butt bone on your
Mhm.
chair as you sit, and then like being okay to lean back in your chair and then having
Right.
that active core. So just having a
Right.
brace core, pulling up from the pelvic floor, pulling your belly button in. And that doesn't mean your core is 100% active the whole time. Like you're
No,
not
yeah.
maintaining that like 100% core brace as you sit all day.
That would be
But
miserable.
yeah, but like 25% of your core brace is a good goal for sitting in your chair and having that um, engagement through your workday. And then to be honest, like as if your pelvis is in the right position, if it's in a neutral position, that just naturally leads up through the rest of your body. So you
Right.
don't have to think much. Like
Yeah.
your upper body will follow suit if
Right.
your pelvis is in neutral alignment. And with that, strengthening of the proper posture muscles, like as soon as you start to strengthen those rhomboids, they want to work, they want to do their job, so they are going to sit at your desk and they're going to hold your shoulders back so that they are in neutral alignment, your spine is in neutral alignment. I think that's something that is actually kind of reassuring, is like your body fights to be at in its best position. So like
Right.
it wants to be in neutral alignment, it wants to be at homeostasis. So it fights for that. Once you give it the tools to hold itself there, it's gonna hold it there pretty
Right.
naturally.
So we want that neutral pelvis, we want that neutral spine, which means, not anteriorly tilting, not posteriorly tilting, but engaging the glutes, trying to keep the core tight as well. And then what about like from your shoulders up? So you talked a little bit about, opening up the chest. I like to tell a lot of my clients to pack the shoulders while you're sitting at
Mm-hmm.
the desk. So
Yeah.
rolling them back and down. A lot of times just naturally those shoulders start to creep up towards the ears. It happens to
Totally.
me all the time. And I have to force myself to pull them down. Like I'm trying to pull my shoulder blades to my back pocket.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. And then also neutralizing the neck. We talked
Huge.
pelvis, spine. Well, your neck is part of the spine, the cervical
Yeah.
spine. So thinking about, not protruding your chin forward and
Mm.
keeping it in aligned with your spine is huge because you can get a
Yeah.
lot of, that's where headaches stem from and
Mm-hmm.
um, all of that nasty stuff. So just watching where your neck is
Mm-hmm.
while you sit at your desk is huge.
Yeah, I heard something one time about how much your head weighs. And so when it's as you like every degree you move your head down, it adds something like 10 pounds. I'm not going to get the exact
Hmm.
numbers right, but I do know that once you're looking completely down, so like we do a lot on our
Hex
phones,
neck.
it's put 60 pounds of pressure on your cervical spine. And it's just not meant to hold that. Like it's not meant to hold 60 pounds. And again, like our work life does tend to like naturally pull our necks forwards. We have to be on top of it. Like we have to be
Right.
disciplined and like actively avoiding that, which can be
Yeah.
hard and get tiring. But again, like once you start to do that regularly, pulling your neck back and just being mindful of it, my favorite place to practice that is in my car, like against my headrest,
Yeah.
because you get like some of that feedback. It will start to do that naturally. So it's not going to be a forever thing where you're like constantly like, oh, my neck, my neck, my neck, I have to pull it back. It's going to be like pretty natural after a while and it happens pretty quickly. But that can, again, travel down your spine. Like it has a domino effect of like, oh, your
Mhm.
neck's in neutral. Everything else is going to kind of follow suit.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, a good challenge, like you just mentioned, was driving home from work in your car. Try to see if you can hold that neutral position in the spine and the pelvis. See if you
Yeah.
can correct where your neck is by keeping it on the headrest and even when you're texting, like I find myself a lot of times doing, the forward
Hmm.
neck and
Yeah.
rounded shoulders and so I've learned like I need to pick up my phone. Like I need to even though
Yes.
it's not the natural thing to do, pick up
Yeah.
my
Hold
phone
it in
so
front
I'm
of my
looking
face.
at yeah.
Hmm.
So that's just little things that, kind of best practices you can try to
Yeah.
challenge yourself with and try to get it, like you said, just be mindful of it is the biggest thing. And then you'll start to think about it on a daily
Hmm.
basis and just, hey, what's my body doing right now? Let me
Yeah.
check in and see if I can readjust and then go from there. So
Yeah.
what are some other things besides what we already chatted about? Some just best practices when you're trying to focus on your posture, whether it's inside or even outside of the gym.
Yeah, that's a great question. My favorite one, and it was when someone told me to do it, I was like, I'm gonna look so weird. But I tell people to do it all the time because, well, as we mentioned, when we sit at our desks, our glutes are usually pretty lengthened and not awake. So like
Right.
then a lot of people that sit at their desks all day have a hard time activating them. Like their mind body connection to their glutes is pretty dormant. Like it's pretty
Right.
hard to reactivate. And so that happens a lot when people will start to go for long walks and be like, I'm just like my hips really ache after my long walk. Like I have a lot of pain in them. And so I'll tell them, when you walk, I want you to think about activating your glute with each step. So as you pull your
Ah,
foot back, squeeze your buns, like squeeze that side and then switch and squeeze it. And at first it's going to feel really funny and you might feel like you look really funny. I promise you, no one's looking in, no one's seeing that you are squeezing your glute. Like it's not that visible to someone else. But it starts to like wake up that mind body connection
right.
in a way that's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like that's the glute's job, is to pull your
Mhm.
leg into hip extension. So as you start to activate it, it pretty quickly becomes natural. And to me, that's a pretty easy, like just while I'm walking around the office, like, okay, my glutes have been asleep all day. Like they haven't had to do any work. So as I start to walk to get water or something, I'll be like, okay, just squeeze my glutes here and there. And it just becomes a strengthening exercise. That's pretty easy, you know?
Right. It sounds so weird, but you're so right. I mean, the mind muscle connection thing is huge.
Huge.
And then like even before you go on a walk, you could even do
Mhm.
standing kickbacks, like something
Yes.
to just like remind yourself, okay, my glutes are supposed to be active. So standing up and just, kicking that leg back, activating the glute to see what it feels like. And then you're able to say, okay, my glute is active. I feel that. Now let me start walking and see if I can feel that as I walk.
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
I think I love that you brought that up, the like preparing for movement. It doesn't have to be
Mhm.
a 20-minute warm up. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this long thing, but like thinking about the activity you're about to do, whether that's like playing with your kids or walking, like what is the muscle that I'm feeling tight in, I'm feeling inactive in, like what can I do to help prepare for this movement? Maybe that's 10 kickbacks on each leg. Like that's very quick and easy to do before you get up and walk, or maybe it's a couple glute bridges before you go to activate the core and the glutes.
Right.
So I think that that's such a great practice to include in your movement routine, just daily.
Right. And if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're already on our YouTube channel. So you need to go to our Cube Fit classes and you need to go to the stretch and mobility playlist and click on one, any of them, because our instructors will
Absolutely.
walk you through how to mobilize those tight muscles, how to activate those underactive muscles, and even dynamic movements that will help you get there and stay there in that neutral pelvis and neutral spine and all of the things we've been talking about today. So go watch those 10-minute stretches. I think we even have a 20-minute mobility class, right?
Mhm.
So watch those. They're super quick and easy to just, after a meeting, put it in your calendar that you're going to hop on one. They're all on demand. We also have live classes, as y'all know, but the on demand ones can be very helpful and very useful and can help get your body in the position it should be and needs to be in. So,
Yeah.
definitely go ahead and check that out after you hop off of this podcast.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to add, Kimber, about anything we've talked about posture wise?
No, I think the only thing would be that it isn't I think it can feel pretty daunting. Like, oh, my shoulders are rounded, my hip, like everything's out of alignment. I don't know where to begin. And I
Right.
think that like one, that's where those stretch classes and having someone tell you what to do can be really helpful. I had to do that. Like I was at a point in my workouts where I was like, I don't have the mind power to think of what I want to do in my workouts. So I went to a gym where they had it programmed for me and I didn't have to
Yes.
think about it. So sometimes that's what you need. And that's why those classes are really helpful, but also those 10 minutes can make a huge difference. Like this doesn't have to be 30 minutes to an hour of stretching every day to get you into the proper alignment. It really is those little tiny fixes of like pulling your neck back in the car on your way home that really do make lifestyle changes that last forever. Like it's very small things that you can pick one thing to start with. So I hope that when you leave here today after watching this, you're feeling like it's doable and not daunting, because
Right.
it really will, your body will follow what you're training it to do. It wants to get there. And so those little changes can make huge differences.
So amazing. Great way to end it. I love everything you just said. I
Love
mean,
it.
nothing to add. So,
Perfect.
how do you feel about doing a rapid fire this or that to finish us out?
Love it. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do a little work edition since we've been talking about sitting at our desk. So,
Great.
here we go. First one, text or call?
Okay, work edition, call.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
life edition,
But
text.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Please text me, don't call me.
Yeah.
But I agree, in work, it's easier to just hop on a call.
Yeah.
Agreed. Email or live meeting?
Ooh, that would be live meeting.
Really?
Yeah, I'm all about the talking to people, I think.
Apparently.
Yeah, I really like the like person to person, face to face. I feel like communication is just clearer over that.
That's true, that's true. I feel like I'm a little bit more of an introvert, so I kinda like the email stuff,
Yeah,
and I feel like I can get more of my thoughts out in an email,
true.
but
Mhm.
I agree face-to-face interaction is good too, but
Yeah.
Zoom or Teams?
Teams. I used to be total Zoom, but
I
now
know, that's
Teams.
why I put this question in just for you because I knew you used to be
Uh,
a Zoom girl.
I used to be so against Teams. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. But now I do love the ease of it, and like I think it's like a really user friendly platform. So I've switched.
Eye roll. Okay.
Yeah.
Interviewer or interviewee?
Oh, interviewer. Like, yeah, I would like to
Yeah,
interview someone. I love learning about people. So I just think it's
yeah,
so fun. And I think I find joy in like hopefully making the interview the most comfortable situation as
right.
possible for that
Mhm.
person. So yeah, interviewer for sure.
Love that. Open office or cubicle?
I think cubicle. Yeah.
I would agree.
Mm, yeah. I
I
need
wanna be in
some,
my own little bubble.
yeah. I need some
Yeah.
space where there's or like just yeah, separation. Mhm.
Yeah, separation, yeah. I don't wanna get distracted. I
Yeah.
agree.
Mhm.
Last one, Friday off or Monday off?
I would say Friday off, because I think Fridays are to have them off would be less stressful because I don't feel like I'm missing much. Like I
Yes,
don't feel like I'll
agreed.
come back on Monday to like 40 emails, but to
If you
miss
miss a
a
Monday,
Monday, everyone is just like gung
oof.
ho and like getting stuff done on a Monday. So I think I would choose Friday off.
I agree, but it is nice if you go on a long vacation and you're, like, traveling on Sunday and you get back
Yes.
late, and then you're like, "Ah, I don't have to go to work tomorrow." That's a nice feeling, but I would
Yes.
agree. Gotta go with
Yeah.
Friday.
It also makes a
Love it.
difference if everyone has the Monday off, like it's the holiday.
Yes,
Great.
then we're fine.
I would rather
We're
have a
good.
Monday, but if it's just me, Friday.
Right. Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kimber. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope that our listeners got some good points. I think they did. You did a great job at explaining all of that stuff. I know it seems like it's daunting, but we promise you it's not. Take small steps, like Kimber said. Hop onto those 10-minute stretch breaks, and we promise that you'll start to feel better very soon. Your body
Yes,
needs it. So
it sure does.
give it to your body. Be kind to
Love it.
yourself.
Yes,
All
love
right.
it.
Well, thank you so much, Kimber, and we
Thanks,
will
Jenny.
talk to you next time.
Awesome. Bye.